If your retirement income is going to land above $90,997 a year, the government is going to quietly take back some of the OAS you spent your whole working life entitled to collect. Not a small amount, potentially thousands of dollars a year, and most Canadians never see it coming because it doesn't show up on your OAS application. It doesn't get flagged by your bank, nobody calls you. It shows up as a deduction at tax time, calculated on a line most people don't even know exists, reducing the OAS you receive the following year. This is called the OAS Recovery Tax. Informally, people call it the clawback. And the reason it catches so many Canadians off guard is that the people most exposed to it are often the ones who did everything right. They saved diligently. They maxed their RRSP for 30 years. They built a real retirement picture. And now those savings are generating mandatory income that crosses a threshold they never planned around. Today I want to show you exactly how the clawback works, what it costs at real income levels, why responsible RRSP savers are particularly exposed, and the 3 things you can do about it before your retirement income locks in. Old age security is a monthly payment from the federal government. Unlike CPP, it's not based on how much you worked or how much you contributed. If you're 65 or older and you've lived in Canada for the required number of years, you get it. The maximum monthly OAS for someone aged 65 to 74 in 2024 is $713, roughly $8,560 a year. At 75, the government adds a 10% permanent increase, bringing it to around $9,400 annually. For most Canadians, OAS is a meaningful piece of the retirement income picture. Not everything, but real money. And because you didn't directly contribute to it the way you did with CPP, it's easy to assume it's just there, guaranteed, yours. It is, unless your net income crosses the threshold. The OAS Recovery Tax kicks in the moment your net income exceeds $90,997. That's the 2024 threshold. The government indexes it to inflation each year, so the number adjusts slightly, but the mechanism stays the same. For every dollar your income goes above that threshold, you repay 15 cents of OAS. What that means in practice is that above the threshold, your effective tax rate on every additional dollar of income is 15 percentage points higher than your normal marginal rate, on top of whatever bracket you're already in. At $100,000 of net income, you're $9,000 over the threshold. 15% of $9,000 is $1,350 clawed back. Not catastrophic, but you're already losing money you thought was secured. At $120,000 of net income, you're about $29,000 over. The clawback is $4,350 a year. That's more than 5 full OAS monthly payments disappearing every single year. At $140,000, you're roughly $49,000 over the threshold. Clawback, $7,350 a year. Over 15 years of retirement at that income level, you've quietly given back $110,000 in benefits you earned the right to collect. The clawback phases out completely at roughly $148,000. Above that point, there is no OAS left to recover. It is simply gone. Here is why this catches so many Canadians, and why it is not just a high-income problem. Most people think of their retirement income as separate pieces. CPP over here, OAS over there, a pension, some investment income. You look at each one individually and none of them feel alarming. The clawback doesn't look at pieces. It looks at total net income from all sources added together in the same year. And when those pieces stack, the threshold gets crossed faster than you expect. Here is a realistic scenario. You retire at 65 with a modest defined benefit pension, $40,000 a year. You're also collecting CPP near the maximum, which in 2024 is about $17,400. That's already $57,400 before OAS starts. Add OAS at $8,560, and your total retirement income is about $65,960. Still under the threshold. You're fine. But here's what you didn't plan for. You also have an RRSP you've been building for 30 years. And at 71, it converts to a RRIF, a Registered Retirement Income Fund. And the government requires you to start making minimum withdrawals, whether you need the money or not. The minimum withdrawal percentages are set by the government and increase every year as you age. At 72, the minimum is 5.4%. At 75, it's 5.8%. On a $400,000 RIF, you're forced to pull out somewhere between $21,000 and $23,000 a year, even if your pension and CPP already cover your entire lifestyle. That mandatory RRIF income pushes your total from $66,000 to nearly $89,000. Add any investment income or the automatic OAS increase that kicks in at 75, and you've crossed the threshold without making a single active decision to do so. That is the exposure that surprises people. The OAS clawback doesn't just happen to executives and business owners. It happens to disciplined savers who built exactly the retirement they were told to build, and then discover the RRIF rules create income they never asked for at the exact moment OAS starts, triggering a penalty on the thing they'd been waiting 30 years to collect. There are 3 moves. All of them work better the earlier you act. The first is the RRSP meltdown. Between the time you retire, say 62 or 63, and the time you turn 71, you have a window. Your RRSP hasn't converted to a RRIF yet. You are not required to draw from it, but you can choose to. If your income in those early retirement years is lower, because you've left employment and CPP or OAS haven't fully stacked yet, you're in a lower marginal tax bracket than you'll be at 71 when the RRIF forces withdrawals on top of everything else. Withdrawing from the RRSP deliberately during that lower income window lets you pay the tax now at a lower rate and reduce the RRIF balance before mandatory minimums begin. A smaller RRIF means smaller mandatory withdrawals. Smaller mandatory withdrawals mean less income stacking at the point when OAS starts. Less stacking means less clawback. You're not avoiding tax, you're timing it. Paying it at a lower rate now instead of paying it at a higher effective rate later, while simultaneously losing OAS benefits on top. The second move is the TFSA. When you withdraw from a TFSA in retirement, those withdrawals do not count as income. They are invisible to the clawback calculation. $100,000 in a TFSA generates 0 net income when you draw down, 0 exposure. This is the retirement reason the TFSA matters beyond tax-free growth. For anyone sitting on a large RRSP and a potential clawback exposure, the TFSA is your buffer. When your RRIF minimum is already pushing you toward the threshold, you cover lifestyle spending from the TFSA instead of triggering additional RRIF withdrawals. It absorbs the gap without adding a single dollar to your net income. The TFSA is your clawback shield, but it has to exist before you need it. The third move is pension income splitting. If you have a spouse or common law partner, Canadian tax law allows you to allocate up to 50% of certain pension income, including RRIF withdrawals, to your partner's tax return. If your income is significantly higher than your partner's, splitting can bring your individual net income below the clawback threshold, while the household total stays exactly the same. No money moves. You allocate it differently on paper. And since the threshold applies per person, not per household, you can keep the combined income, but eliminate the clawback by distributing it more evenly. None of these are complicated. They're not loopholes. They're the standard mechanics of how the Canadian retirement tax system works. The people who use them just planned around the rules before the income locked in. Here is what to do this week. 1 thing. Sketch your projected retirement income, your expected pension if you have one, your estimated CPP amount, available through your Service Canada account, OAS at 65, and your expected minimum RRIF withdrawal at 71, based on where your RRSP balance is headed. Add them up. If the total is going to land above $91,000, you have a clawback exposure. And the right time to build a strategy around it is not the year the RRIF kicks in. It's now. The meltdown window closes at 71. The TFSA needs years to grow into a useful buffer. Pension income splitting requires a partner with meaningfully lower income. These aren't fixes you apply at the last minute. They're design decisions that work best when made at 55 or 60, not 70. The earlier you see the exposure, the more room you have to act on it. If this was useful, subscribe. There is a new video every week on exactly this kind of quiet, unexciting retirement math that most Canadians never run, but probably should. The boring one wins.